Welcome to A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. I'm Evan J. Cholfin from Luxhammer, where we help the brands that help you live healthier. Today, we're joined by Justin Gardner, CEO of Active Skin Repair, who's revolutionizing skincare with their innovative HOCL technology. Justin, welcome.
Thank you, Evan. Great to be here.
So, what inspired you to start Active Skin Repair and bring this hospital grade molecule to consumer markets?
So, my background and where I was previous to running Active Skin Repair was in regenerative medicine. So, I would help launch products into the hospital space, generally like dermal engineered skin substitutes. So, really kind of high tech, but also high priced products. And they were focused around skin and wound repair. So, it was an area I was really well versed in and also helped, again, multiple brands kind of come into that professional hospital space. When I was running an agency that did that, and the medical device company with the hyperchlorous acid technology came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to help launch us into the hospital system." So that was my first time I got to know about the molecule and the technology, which I can get into. From when I learned about that molecule, and it's a very affordable price too, so it wasn't these expensive biologic products. The science behind it, the fact that it was extremely safe, it's same safety profile as saline solutions, non-toxic, really safe. And they had an over-the-counter indication that they just weren't using. They were focused on the hospital side. So long story short, I went back to them and said, "Hey, could we license this technology? And I think there's a real application for consumers here." And that's how we launched Active Skin Repair, is using that same medical grade formulation that was being used in the hospitals, but bringing it over the counter. That was in 2018 now, 2017, 18.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, what makes your approach unique compared to traditional wound care products?
So what's cool about the hyperchlorous acid molecule is the same molecule our white blood cells produce. So if you get cut, scrape, burn, any type of skin damage, your body's immune response is to send white blood cells to that injury. Inside the white blood cells is a molecule called hyperchlorous acid. What we're able to do is replicate that same immune response so that you can apply topically, either in a liquid or a gel formulation, the same way your body's working internally. And that does three major things. It's a really powerful antimicrobial, so it kills 99.9% of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. It helps reduce the inflammatory response that your body had from that skin issue, and it helps speed up the natural healing process. So if you look at like first aid, skin, and especially for on the wound care side, if we focus in on that, let's take a Neosporin, for example, right? Synthetic antibiotics. It's up to about 20% of people will have an allergic reaction to one of those synthetic antibiotics. The molecule's innate to your immune system, so we have no allergic reactions to our product. In our gel formulation, we use a hydrogel. We're not using anything petroleum based, so cleaner, way cleaner ingredients, no synthetic antibiotics. You get all that same efficacy. We're still a very powerful antimicrobial. And what's cool about it too is because if you can, because it has no toxicity to it, you can spray it around your eyes, ears, and mouth, and there's no issues with sensitive areas. So you wouldn't want to be doing that with like a synthetic toxic antiseptic as well.
Wow, that's really cool. So, what would you say has been your biggest challenge in educating consumers about hydrochlorous acid technology?
By far, it's just explaining complex science in a simple way, right? So there's a lot of clinical evidence behind the molecule. It's been studied a lot. There's a lot of scientific data to support the efficacy and how it works. But explaining and changing a consumer's behavior from when they're used to using a Neosporin, when they're used to using peroxides, and that's kind of how we've all grown up, to get them to be able to understand the science, trust it, especially when we're not a Johnson and Johnson, we're not some gigantic pharmaceutical company that somebody's been more traditionally familiar with. So really being able to educate and get that trust from that consumer with us not being, a big pharma company with billions of dollars of budget.
Yeah, and how do you overcome that initial skepticism when you don't have that $1 billion budget to spend?
Well, the product works really well. So you got to start with that, right? So
Yeah.
if you can get it in people's hands, with the thesis is it will grow. If we don't have those massive budgets, it's just going to take a little bit longer. What has been amazing for us is, I'd say, two things and how we've really adopted that trust. One, Amazon reviews don't lie, right? And so we have over 5,000 five-star reviews. It reviews amazingly well. And if you go read all the reviews and all the things people have used for it, what would have been very tough to get people to trust 10 years ago, I think Amazon's provided a real world way for brands like us to show that our product works and people can trust. The other one is we've been very active in influencer marketing. So being able to gift the product to influencers, have them use it on their families, and tell their followers about our product. And I think people really love that trust from, whether it's a friend to friend or mom to mom or however that is.
Yeah, and how do you gain the trust of medical professionals?
Well, medical professionals is one. I think for a long time, medical professionals, especially when you get into skin clinic, like people who work in the clinical kind of skin side of things, like a dermatologist, they already hated Neosporin, so they would never recommend it. They had already, for the last 15 years, stopped recommending that to patients. So it actually was pretty easy to be able to, because we have all this clinical evidence, be able to go into them and say, hey, here's a really good option. So they're really receptive to it, and it has been really well adopted in that kind of dermatology and aesthetic side of things. But it's also, without a full-time sales force out there knocking on doors, it's just tough to, it's growing in popularity with clinicians, but it's still tough without a sales force. There's so many different products out there and so many people trying to sell to a clinician, breaking through that noise. So a lot of times it's one clinician talking to another clinician that recommends it. Or a lot of times what we have it actually is patients going in and telling their dermatologist, and then the dermatologist reaching out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are you handling supply chain and manufacturing control with your ISO 9000 clean room requirements?
So in 2020, we were acquired by that medical device company, family-owned medical device company here in California. And one of the big reasons why we joined forces with them was that we became fully vertically integrated. Not only do we market and sell active skin repair, we own the whole manufacturing facility around it. So um, from start to finish, we control that whole process, which is really cool. We do everything in California. So that allows us to produce products without a supplier having to be involved, which is great. I mean, especially during COVID or now with the tariffs, supply chains can break down. We own our supply chain. It is the same medical grade formulation that we're putting into hospitals too. So we go through that same rigor that we would use for the surgical procedure product, right? And so everything's done in an ISO certified clean room, highly regulated facility, regulated by the FDA, cleared as a medical device, not just over the counter drug, but actually a step farther into as a medical device. And that allows us also, when we have that tight control, to test every product before we release it as well, to know that it has that efficacy and safety that we promote.
Yeah, that's amazing that you've taken that step further to really prove out your product. What makes it difficult to raise awareness in your market?
We joke, we call it the WD-40 of skin repair, because when you're replicating an immune response, right, it works on so many different things. It can work on acne, eczema. It can be a daily facial mist. It works and cleared on open skin, so cuts and scrapes, sunburns and bug bites, all these things, right? But sometimes that's tough to really focus, right? And so if you go too wide, it can get a little bit confusing for the consumer. It's tough to get people really excited about first aid. It's just not a category that traditionally consumers look on Facebook and go, oh, a new first aid product, right? And so it's a little tough when you fall into the first aid category, where we've really found that receptivity. And today it's about 93% of our customers are female and moms. So when you have a mom who's dealing with little kids that are getting cuts and scrapes every day or getting bug bites and all those things, we found a really receptive audience. It's been challenging overall to get people excited sometimes about this category, but the moms who really have to deal with these issues, and we're looking for non-toxic alternatives to what existed out there. I think the consumer today is much more educated to not just blindly trust Johnson and Johnson and a Neosporin, right? We've seen that with the baby powders, and that you can't just blindly trust. And I think they're out there doing their own research and finding non-toxic alternatives. And so we found that to be a really receptive audience. And so a long-winded way to answer your question is really understand who we're talking to and what is important to them.
Yeah, definitely. And you're in Mother's Market locations and expanding retail presence. What's your distribution strategy?
So retail's been challenging. Again, I'll come back to the first aid side of things because you just don't get a lot. A lot of people will, if they're looking for a first aid product, they'll go to a Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, so some big box pharmacy. We've never wanted to be in big box pharmacy because it's usually at the back of the store, it's commoditized, it's kind of run by those big pharma companies, and we just didn't feel like our brand fit there. It just didn't feel right for us. A place like Mother's Market where people are looking for natural alternatives is awesome. We do really well in those high-end stores. The problem with that, though, is there's a handful of Mother's Markets. There's not thousands and thousands of Mother's Markets. So it's a very tough thing to scale. First of all, being able to communicate our product online is much easier because of, again, all the ways it works, the science behind it. It's very tough to do that on shelf in a box and packaging. So online via Amazon or our website has always been kind of that preferred distribution channel for us. And it really allows us to scale and communicate the full kind of potential of the product through those mediums.
I'm curious, just in general, what's working best in your sales process right now?
Working best in the sales process, influencer marketing was in 2020 for where our brand really hit that flywheel, especially as we got into more macro level influencers who, I mean, they could in one post sell tens and thousands of units. Right? So that was a really has been very successful for us. Really got our brand out there in that flywheel. But Amazon too, I would say, is also been a being able to own keywords within Amazon because it's the number two search engine, right? When people are looking for products, if you're looking for a natural wound care product, you're generally typing that in Amazon. So we've really been able to capture that kind of search within Amazon very successfully. And now we're broadening out. Now that the brand is much bigger and we have more marketing budget to do that, we're been running podcasts. We're starting TV ads in the next week, so we'll start running some TV ads. We've been able to scale our Meta and Google marketing quite a bit as well.
Oh, that's exciting. So, what trends are you seeing in natural skincare that excite you?
I think the trend is it's growing. I think when you look at natural skincare, you say it's probably more clean than natural because I don't think it always has to be natural. Like our product's natural, that's great, but I think you can have really good products that are just clean ingredients, right? And so I think when you look at that clean beauty, clean skincare category, you're just watching it grow pretty substantially. I think you're getting people who are just much more cognizant of what they're putting in and on their bodies. I think we have a lot more scientific data too to show that like, if you're putting these toxic things on your skin, it's not only affecting your skin, it's affecting things like your gut microbiome and all these different aspects of your health, and they're all playing together. And so the more you can clean out the toxic ingredients in your food and in your skincare and in your cleaning products and all those different things, the healthier you're going to be. And so I think you're seeing a really big shift for consumers wanting and willing to pay a little bit extra for that. In terms of where I think we're seeing trends too, is people don't want 20 different products. They want one product that can do, or a few products that can do a lot of different things. Like they don't feel you need to have 20 different facial products that you put on every day. And I agree with them. I think it's really cool to have products that can have that kind of multifunctional capacity.
Absolutely. And what do you think will be crucial to get right in the next year?
You know, it's you always want the biggest thing that we do, and it really is taking some fairly substantial bets. It's betting on media, it's betting on influencers, it's betting who are you putting your money on, is that the best bet, and using as much data as you can to make informed bets. So it's critical that we get our media buying right. What's great is when you're fully vertically integrated, when so many other people are having supply chain issues, when they're having their different component prices change all the time and all these other issues that brands have to deal with. We don't have that because we're fully vertically integrated. So what we really now just have to focus on is getting the brand out there, but doing it in a way that's effective where there's a return on investment for that. So it's picking the right bet.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were to have this conversation again in 12 months, what achievements would make you feel it's been a successful year?
I think for us, we want to, we probably have a little over, 500,000 customers at this point, right? But there's how many millions, hundreds of millions of people in the US. This is a product that could be in everybody's house. So we're at 1% of our potential so far. So we've got a long way to go. I mean, even if you look at Neosporin, I think there's a lot more market share for us to take from just that kind of archaic brand, but also grow the category as well at the same time. To do that really means top of funnel marketing for us. So we have to put more awareness out there, hence going into mediums like TV, where you're going to get those millions of viewers being able to watch, right? Where we've been very focused in more mid bottom funnel marketing, more performance marketing, which is great from a return on investment and immediate return, especially when you're a startup brand. But being able to go wider and really bring more people into the brand, I think will be a really key component for us in the next 12 months.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That's it for today's episode of Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. A huge thank you to Justin Gardner for sharing his insights and amazing work that Active Skin Repair is doing to help people live healthier, happier lives. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit. And if you're a brand or business making an impact in health, wellness, or personal care, we'd love to help you grow. Connect with me at luxhammer.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep making a difference.